I feel like as Black women, we subject ourselves to so much more internal judgment, ridicule, and pain. I'm sitting here thinking about empty nesting and what empty nesting looks like, because I remember when I went through that era of my life, and it was kind of a two-step era. So my children are 9 years apart. So when the first one left, it was like losing that person that really was the foundation of motherhood for me. The person that required me to be great, right? It required me. She propelled me in ways that she will never know, especially being a young parent, a young mom, young single mom at that, and having to take her away to college with me and do all of those things. And she pulled out strength in me that I didn't know I had. And so it was really hard for me to realize that she was going to be leaving from under me. I remember dropping her off at the train station because she had decided she was going to move across the country, literally across the country. And I was terrified. I cried on the parking lot for about an hour. But then I also had this other child that was 9 years younger that I needed to take care of. So she kind of filled the void of keeping me from completely breaking down. And then, of course, it was time then for her to, basically 9 years later, it was time for her to then kind of make her transition. And I remember senior year literally crying at every function, every meeting, everything that was happening in school, because it was the last of those meetings, the last parent teachers conference, the last kickoff meeting of the school year, the last homecoming, the last school dance, the last, like everything was the last, right? And she would be like, oh my God, the last mother and daughter brunch, the last daddy and donuts. Like, I didn't care, a daddy daughter dance. Like, I didn't care. I was crying at everything. And she was just like, oh my God, lady, please cut it out. But what I realized was I was grieving. It was a grief process. And then even taking her to school, I remember the feeling. I remember the night before move-in. Her and her best friend stayed in this little like cottage, and I stayed in the main house. And I cried myself to sleep. They were over in the cottage in the second house having such a ball, music playing. They were having a ball. I cried myself to sleep. I cried so bad that the next morning when I woke up to get the girls ready for move-in day, my eyes were swollen shut, and she was like, you've been crying. I cried. It was a dry heat cry. I cried like I had lost someone. That's the best way I can explain it, like I had lost someone. But also, I realized as I was talking to people in my circle, no one quite understood. And I refuse to believe that people didn't miss their kids the way I missed my kids. I couldn't understand why I couldn't get anyone to like truly understand what I was going through. And then I found myself on social media, Facebook groups, by the way, where I just literally went out and tried to find my community. And by finding them, I was able to really connect with this loss, and I was able to actually give it a name and give the grief a name. But then it got me to thinking, why is it that as Black women, we are not comfortable enough with the idea of expressing this, because other folks around us tell us we should just be glad we're finally gonna get the house to ourselves, we can do what we want to do. And the reality is you still could do. I mean, by the time they become teenagers and start driving, honey, they're not paying us attention no damn way. But what is it about this that in our culture we're not allowed to be in tune with that? Because I can tell you, as I've talked to other people, they too have acknowledged that, that drop off was hard, that it was like a funeral. Like, you feel like you literally lost your child in a way. But somehow we're not able to just sit in those emotions and sit in those feelings and acknowledge them so we can work through them as a community. I don't know, it's just kind of crazy how sometimes I feel like as Black women, we subject ourselves to so much more internal judgment, ridicule, and pain from the things that we have to deal with. We just have so much. It's just such a heavy ass burden. Sometimes we should be able to acknowledge. I miss my babies, and while I want them out of the house, I want them with me as well. And it doesn't mean that I want to raise lazy kids and all of that stuff, but I want them in my space.